The quiet single dad walked out of the glass tower carrying nothing but a cardboard box, an old leather bag, and the last pieces of the life he had tried so hard to protect. Behind him, dozens of employees watched in silence as security escorted him toward the lobby. Nobody knew that the man they had just fired was not a desperate employee at all. He was the billionaire founder whose name was hidden behind the company's success. And nobody knew that the woman in the wheelchair reaching desperately toward him was about to discover the truth that would change both their lives forever. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the idea that a person's true worth is never measured by their clothes or their position, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to Bright Heart. Your support helps us bring more stories like this to life. Daniel Carter had spent years making sure nobody noticed him. He arrived at the company before sunrise, wore the same dark jacket almost every day, and left quietly before the building became empty. To most employees, he was simply a hard-working operations assistant and a single father who seemed too tired to complain. He never joined office gossip, never argued with executives, and never spoke about his past. What they did not know was that Daniel had once built the company from a tiny rented office with 2 borrowed computers and a dream that technology should make ordinary people's lives easier. Years earlier, after the company became successful, he had placed control in a professional management team and stepped away from the spotlight. He wanted his daughter, Lily, to grow up believing that kindness mattered more than money. So he returned years later under a quiet identity, taking a low-level position inside the company he had founded, determined to see whether the values he had written into its mission statement still existed. Daniel's life outside the office was completely different from the luxurious world everyone imagined billionaires lived in. He rented a modest apartment, cooked simple dinners, helped Lily with homework, and sometimes fell asleep at the kitchen table while sorting through her school papers. Lily was 9 years old and had learned early that her father worked hard because he loved her. Her mother had died when she was very young, leaving Daniel to raise her alone. Every morning, before going to work, he packed Lily's lunch, fixed her hair, and left a small note inside her backpack reminding her that she was brave. He never told her that the company she saw on television belonged to him. He wanted her to love him for being her father, not because of a bank account. The company had changed dramatically since Daniel founded it. The new executives cared about profits, rankings, and appearances. At the center of it all was Victoria Hayes, the company's brilliant CEO. She had been a powerful executive until a devastating accident left her paralyzed from the waist down. Since then, she had become more demanding, impatient, and emotionally guarded. She hated being treated with pity and fought fiercely to prove that her disability had not weakened her mind or ambition. Daniel understood that struggle better than anyone, but he never told her why. He quietly noticed when employees ignored her requests, when managers spoke over her, and when assistants treated her wheelchair as if it were the most important thing in the room instead of simply another part of her life. One Monday morning, everything changed. A major client accused the company of losing millions because of an operational failure. The board demanded someone take responsibility. Daniel had discovered that the failure was not caused by the employees working beneath him but by a senior executive who had secretly altered financial records. Daniel gathered the evidence and prepared a report, but before he could submit it, the executive discovered what he had found. Instead of admitting the truth, he blamed Daniel. He told the board that Daniel had ignored company procedures, caused delays, and endangered a multi-million-dollar contract. Daniel was called into a conference room surrounded by executives who had barely looked at him during his years there. His supervisor placed a termination letter on the table. Daniel looked at it quietly. He could have exposed everything in seconds. He could have revealed bank records, founder documents, ownership agreements, and the legal structure proving exactly who he was. But then he thought about Lily. He remembered promising her that he would never become the kind of man who used power to humiliate others. So he simply accepted the letter. He packed his belongings into a cardboard box, placed the small plant he kept near his desk inside it, and walked toward the lobby. Victoria happened to be passing through the main floor when she saw him. She recognized the tired expression on his face immediately. She knew Daniel was not dishonest. She had noticed his work for months and had quietly admired how he treated people. But before she could reach him, the elevator doors closed between them. Daniel disappeared into the lobby, while Victoria demanded that someone explain what had happened. The executives told her Daniel had been terminated for incompetence. Something about their answer felt wrong. That evening, Victoria reviewed the operational report herself. Within minutes, she discovered inconsistencies that Daniel had already highlighted. She asked for the original files, but several documents had mysteriously disappeared. Her suspicion grew. She ordered an independent audit and found something even more shocking. The company's legal ownership records contained a dormant founders' agreement that had never been terminated. The majority voting rights belonged to a private holding company connected to the original founder. The founder's identity had been protected by a trust, but one signature appeared repeatedly throughout the documents. Daniel Carter. Victoria stared at the name in disbelief. The quiet employee everyone had treated like a nobody was the man who had created the entire company. The billionaire founder had been working among them without anyone knowing. But Victoria's shock became something deeper when she discovered why Daniel had stayed hidden. He had voluntarily reduced his role years earlier because he wanted the company to be judged by how it treated ordinary employees, not by fear of its owner. He had wanted to know whether the culture he created still existed when nobody knew he was watching. Victoria immediately ordered Daniel to be brought back. But when she finally found him, she did not find a furious billionaire preparing revenge. She found him sitting at his kitchen table helping Lily build a school project. His old jacket hung over a chair, and his cardboard box sat untouched near the door. Victoria realized that the man who had just lost his job was more concerned about finishing his daughter's project than reclaiming billions. Daniel eventually returned to the company, but not as an angry owner. He returned as a father, a founder, and a man determined to fix what had gone wrong. He exposed the executives who had manipulated the records, restored the jobs of employees who had been unfairly dismissed, and created a new employee protection program so that no worker could be destroyed by a powerful manager without a fair investigation. He also made one decision that surprised everyone. He offered Victoria the opportunity to remain CEO, but this time with full authority to rebuild the company beside him. Victoria expected Daniel to judge her for the mistakes she had made while struggling with her disability. Instead, he reminded her that pain could change people, but it did not have to define them. For the first time in years, Victoria felt that someone saw her not as a disabled CEO, but simply as a human being who had survived something difficult. Their relationship slowly became one of mutual respect. Daniel understood her determination, and Victoria understood why he had chosen to live quietly despite having more money than he could ever spend. Months later, Daniel stood in the company lobby with Lily beside him. The same employees who had once watched him leave carrying a cardboard box now stood around him with tears in their eyes. Lily looked up at the giant company logo and finally learned that her father had built the entire organization. Daniel simply smiled and told her that being rich had never been his greatest achievement. Raising her had been. If this story touched your heart, please don't just watch and scroll away. Like the video, share it with someone who believes people deserve second chances, and subscribe to Bright Heart. Sometimes one small act of kindness can remind someone that the world has not completely forgotten them. And before the story ends, I have one special request. Comment, kindness always wins, if you believe that true wealth is measured by the lives we make better, not the money we possess. Daniel never forgot the day he walked out of that building carrying a cardboard box. He also never forgot what happened afterward. Being fired had not destroyed him. It had revealed the truth. And in the end, the quiet single dad who everyone thought had nothing became the man who reminded an entire company that dignity, kindness, and compassion are worth more than billions.